in Kansas is what it looks like.
Exactly.
Look at the green right there. You can see it.
I mean, you got no visibility here. Nothing. It's just crack.
Like that green there is crazy.
Yes.
What is this place called?
Blind pass.
Yeah, this is considered blind pass. You're right here at the break of Sanibel. Sanibel's the east side, and
Captiva's the west. Yeah.
Look at all that green.
So the other one we called entrance of blind pass.
that
This
was
one
the
we'll
entrance.
call
This
blind
is-
pass.
this is the pass.
You're
yeah.
right in the heart of it.
Okay.
This is the pass.
Yeah, we go up around the corner here. That's where Kirk's house is.
I've been back here in a couple weeks. I don't think I've ever seen it like this before.
They didn't have any roads until they came out to ours, and then they're like, "What? Is this what I'm talking about?" Well, they didn't know how to You got a golfer place fetching.
Yeah. Literally, you got no visibility here. Usually you get to see 650 feet to see bottom. That dock right there, that was from the last hurricane we had. Broke off on one of these houses and
I was gonna say, yeah, just floated
it
over.
floated intact, just like that, to its resting ground.
Okay, floating in there.
I don't know what that is.
When you're doing water testing, especially in a contaminated area, you got to make sure you try to do it in a non-biased way.
Yeah.
Especially, what I'm trying to do is prove the contamination. So by doing that, I'm certainly not going to just go to the contamination directly and pull up water that's floating right by a dead
stuff,
fish.
right.
Because that's unbiased.
It's definitely going to be contaminated
What
in that area.
what I'm doing right now is I'm just getting a basic view for myself. I'm one of those guys I don't put a whole lot of trust in anything but my own mind. So when I do these tests and then I see the results, I'm gonna basically know how to go about further testing. So further testing, let's say when I was soil sampling in Kansas, for example, if I went into a 100-acre or 1,000-acre farm and I pulled one core of soil and said, hey buddy, like this is what I recommend for fertilizer to get 75 bushels of soybeans per acre, that's not accurate. So what I would do is I would go in and I'd do what was called grid sampling. It's where I'd go in and I'd pull 15 to 20 core samples for every acre. So what I'm doing today is just getting a basic broad view of where we might have the most damage, and then where I see that we do, we're gonna go in and we'll basically grid sample. Grid sampling water is a lot different because we're gonna do that with time, because one thing different about water and soil is it can change a lot faster. So it's important not to do a regular kind of scheduling. Some companies, for example, they send their people out on Mondays at noon to do water testing. Have you ever heard of a tide, Captain?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the tide the same at noon every Monday?
Absolutely not.
All year round? No. So I mean, we need to be working with Mother Nature when we're taking these tests, not just working for our own convenience because, oh man, we get off at 5 o'clock. There's a reason why I set this on military time. Because I love people who serve in the military, but I've never served. So I have it on military time because I have no idea what time it is after noon. There's just no need for that, right?
Yeah.
We just go on high tide and low tide around here. No, but it really is. We have to work with nature when we schedule this. This is a nature problem. So we have to work around nature's time clock and not our own. Nature doesn't get off at 5 o'clock. So when that means coming out at 2 in the morning to get that sample of an evening slack tide, so you can compare it to your last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's what science is a collection and a recording of data. Because when I think I know something, I put a point on a map. You know, I make a little point. You know, and then like I learn something else, and then another little point happens. And then I learn something else, and another little point happens. And then I learn something else, and then something else, and then something else. And over time, let's say that I notice a cluster of data starting to collect in one specific area. That is where I know I have scientific truth that can back up my theories. That's when my theories become law. That's when they become fact. This is the important thing. This is what people aren't understanding about algae. There's 54 algae scientists on planet Earth. How many dots do you think that we've made? You know, that's the problem, is because every time we turn the corner and put a new dot, man, we're working on other pages, dude. I mean, it's hard because we don't have that true backing. You know, just like how, you know, some scientists have been saying how, you know, the red tides, and people too, the red tides have been around for hundreds of years that we haven't recorded. Red tides are a very natural thing. However, we've been feeding the red tide, and I'm so glad that there's other scientists other than me that are coming out and saying the truth. You know, that yes, red tide is natural, but look, in those, you know, hundreds of years, we got records back to the 1800s. Never has it been like this. Why? Because never have we lived like this. So it's all about getting back with the program here, guys. Getting back into these mangroves, getting back into these flats. You know, a local captain here, you know, and you were surprised to hear when you were talking about the promoting of seagrass flats and how people didn't realize how important. Even you didn't realize that seagrass sequesters almost more carbon than the Amazon rainforest.
Didn't know that.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's got a special little place in your heart because you were born here and you were born to do this. It matters if you're some landlocked kid from Kansas, or it matters if you're some scientist sitting in Tokyo right now. If you're breathing, you can thank Florida's ecology for that. If you're drinking water, you can thank the ocean. You know, you can thank everything for that. And that's an important thing to grasp. The Everglades, for example. There is no other Everglades on planet Earth. There is no other Everglades on planet Earth. That is such an important ecosystem, and we are choking it out for human convenience when there are ways that we can live alongside that swamp, which it's not a swamp. A lot of people don't realize it is not a swamp. It is a river that flows. We have turned it into a swamp, you know?
Choking it out.
And me and other scientists have been working really hard to prove that while choking out that river system, that Everglades, that we are actually inviting catastrophic events and hurricanes to our area. Because the barometric pressure changes when that cation exchange capacity, same thing that we were talking about earlier. When that barometric pressure changes with that whole ecosystem, that actually invites hurricanes in. So imagine a system, the only system in Earth, when it's getting affected, that's nature's way of trying to clean it. My suggestion is maybe we should clean up our own damage before Big Mama comes back and cleans it again. Irma was sweet to us.
Oh yeah, she's nice.
Irma was sweet to us. She was like cherry pie. And you know, there's one that'll make us feel like Andrew was cherry pie. You know, and if we can prove that the Everglades are in fact that important on paper, it's easy to slide that paperwork over to the desk and be like, hey, you know, Governor, Mr. President, I think that we've got a little bit of research here that suggests. Seriously, how much money is it going to cost to rebuild Miami, rebuild Tampa, rebuild Orlando year after year versus just letting some water flow south? It's almost kind of funny, but I stopped laughing about it a little bit ago. You know, this is a great example of when America was in the Cold War with Russia. And America had spent almost $1 million on this, trying to figure out how to make an ink pen work in outer space, because the ball pen ballpoint pen works by gravity. Now, they spent so much money, and a Russian guy slid over a pencil. This is a true story. You know, sometimes some common sense goes a long way, people. Knowledge is power. You don't need $1 million pen when you've got a pencil.
Already had it.
It doesn't need gravity. It's lead and graphite.
Had the answer already.
But yeah, you know, and this is, it's great lessons like this and great analogies that can just make sense to people. That not only does Florida need Florida, but the world needs Florida. And that's the God honest truth. There is only one Florida. And sure, there's only one Kansas too. You know, and we grow a lot of food there. You know, for every farmer, 153 or maybe 163 people, you know, live off that a year. So I mean, that's a great thing to say. But here, it's like your guys' land is worth more to the planet if you don't farm it. And that's the important thing to really understand. Like, let's farm. You know, farming means to actively do something to get a benefit out of it in nature. That's really what it means. So I mean, think about that. We could just actively farm plants that give us a better product. If our main problem is water, and the main thing for Florida is water, tourists aren't coming, are they, guys? How many fishing trips have you sold this week?
None.
None? How many last week?
None. The past 2 weeks have been pretty slow.
Yeah, I imagine, buddy. We've been the only ones out here on the water.
Yeah, just went around
we've
Sanibel.
seen
The beaches are
empty
usually
right now.
full, and there's nobody on them.
We've
Not
seen
even
maybe
walking on them.
1-2 boats, but yeah, nobody's out here.
We're at a flat that's usually loaded with birds.
It's kind of neat in its own way to just feel like you're just so far out, but no, there's houses all around here, guys. We're not that much in the thickets. We're right here in the pass. You know, here's a boat.
It's really the third boat we've seen all day.
But yeah, it's important that we understand that water is more important than anything. You know, there's a lot of things that are sacred to a lot of different cultures, but water is one thing that's sacred to every single culture. Even the cultures that don't use that word sacred anymore, we're realizing quick that water is sacred, especially when our homies in here are dying. You know, and people say it's hard to breathe and it's hard to see. You know, imagine how those fish feel.
Yeah, try being a fish.
You know, imagine being that heron out there trying to catch a meal on something that's probably poisoned with BMAAs, with the Cyanobacteria, that's going to basically give them birdie-style Alzheimer's. So this affects them not only just by the liver, but neurologically as well. So we need to really get our minds wrapped around this situation. That way we can make darn sure it never happens again.
For sure.